didn't say. I graduated from that blue school over in Durham, Duke Divinity School, and was ordained a United Methodist minister. God, I hate to say it, almost 40 years ago. It was bizarre. And my wife says I look so young. I love you, honey. Mwah. Served in the United Methodist Church in Eastern North Carolina for a number of years, retired from there, and now, again, have been here for almost 15 years. And I still remember, it was at Whitaker Mill. I remember the very first Sunday we came, and I saw 3 or 4 people that I knew before I even got in the door. I didn't think I knew anybody at this place. And I went in, and it was the most loving, the most accepting, the most supportive people I'd ever met in my life. And I thought, where am I? It felt like home to me. Now, we hope that you feel that way here today, that you have had that sense of warmth and acceptance. We would love it if you wanted to make this your home. But if it doesn't resonate with you, we bless you and send you on your way and hope you find that home someday soon. Because everybody needs to find a place they can call home. And unity is really interesting, and we don't proselytize, we're not going to call you, we're not going to send you propaganda literature, we're not going to do any of that. We're not going to do any of that, right? We bless you, love you, accept you just the way you are. We all share in that love of God. We are God's hands and feet in the world, right? We are the love of God. We say it at the end of every service. I am the love of God. I am the power of God. I am the presence of God. You are in here, in reality, right now. As you would expect, being a traditionalist, I start off with Scripture from the Bible. And so I'm going to read from Matthew, the 6th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew. Now this is, I like to say, smack dab in the middle of the Sermon on the Mount, if I can use that old term, smack dab. It's kind of nice. Sermon on the Mount starts in the 5th chapter and rolls on through a couple of chapters. So Jesus here is talking about prayer, which is what our subject is going to be today. Jesus says to the followers, and whenever you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand in the aisles and the synagogues and the street corners so they can be seen by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward. But whenever you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to God who is in secret, and God who sees in secret will reward you. When you pray, do not heap up empty phrases like the Gentiles do, for they think that they will be heard because of their many words. No, do not be like them, for the Lord knows what you need before you ask. That's what Rebecca reminded us of this morning. The Lord knows what you need before you ask. Last year, in this church, we did a book study on this book called The Book of Joy. I knew some quotes from it quite regularly, so I think I'm in good company to do that today too. It's an amazing story of a week-long conversation, set of dialogues between the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. It is fantastic. They go through some amazing things together and have some amazing insights. But they also are really funny. They're two buddies. It's like two kids at camp. It just is, let me read you something. Now the Dalai Lama was rubbing the Archbishop's hand warmly as he would throughout the week. And they were talking about the difficult flight itinerary that the Archbishop had taken just to get there. This is very good, the Dalai Lama said, necessary to rest. I always sleep 8 or 9 hours a night. But you get up very early, don't you? The Archbishop asked. That's right. 3 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the morning? Yes, always. And you pray 5 hours? Yes, I always pray 5 hours. The Archbishop shook his head. He said, I tell people that you are one of the greatest things about you is your serenity. And we know that every day you spend 5 hours in the morning meditating. It shows in how you're responding to things that are agonizing like your exile, like all the pain in the world. But as I tell people, the Archbishop finished up, 5 hours is just way too much. He said, I cannot get up at 3 a.m. and pray 5 hours. I sleep in. I get up at 4. Two weeks ago, Richard Mirage was here in this podium talking to everyone, minister from Unity of Phoenix. And Richard had been on a retreat. Anybody remember what the subject was? Silence, thank you. He'd been on a silence retreat for 10 days. 10 days. He couldn't read his phone, he couldn't read anything, he couldn't talk to people, he couldn't listen to music, nothing for 10 days. Do you remember how long he meditated every day? Anybody? 11 hours a day. I don't know about you, but there are days I don't feel like meditating 11 minutes, much less 11 hours. The Protestant reformer, Martin Luther, was quoted as saying, I have so much to get done today, I have to get up 3 hours extra and pray about my day first. What are we mere mortals to do with these examples of what we seem to be superhuman spirituality? Where am I going with this? This is Labor Day weekend. Now, Labor Day was originally started in 1884, if you didn't know that, by an act of Congress, the first Monday in September. And it was originally set aside to commemorate the work of and contributions of labor unions, of organized labor. Now, it evolved over the years. After World War I and World War II, it became much more the individual worker, the man, woman, or child, in that case, who helped bring America up, who helped win the wars, who helped build our infrastructure. I mean, think about it. The individual labor to have the infrastructure of transportation, electricity, communications. Without all of that, we wouldn't have the privileges we have today. We wouldn't have the prosperity. We wouldn't have the freedoms that we have. And so it became a celebration of the individual worker. Now it's evolved even more. And now when you think of Labor Day, you think of barbecue, right? Well, don't you? Partying, barbecue, sales. You can't wear white after this tomorrow, you know? I'm okay. I checked. But it got me thinking that one thing we don't talk about a lot in this church or others is we don't talk about the labor that's necessary for the spiritual life. We go to coaches, personal trainers for exercise, right? Don't we? We go to a personal trainer for exercise. We get coaching in nutrition. You go to a nutritionist, you get a personal coach. Business people get business coaching, don't they? About what is necessary to run all of those things in your life. But we don't talk about the spiritual labor. So today, I am going to be your prayer coach, right? We're going to talk about prayer in ways you may not think. Now, I am, again, not put off is not the best word, but I am awed at these sort of examples that are put forth. And I look at people's daily lives and all the things you have to do in your day, and I ask you a question. Do you have time to pray? You don't? Thank you. Many of you make time. I suspect most people in this room make time to pray, right? Do you meditate 20 minutes a day? Oh, you've gone from preaching to meddling now. Excuse me. That's what the old phrase was. Preaching to meddling. No, remember, I'm not trying to shame you. That's not what Unity does. Unity is a guilt-free zone, okay? It is. We accept you just the way you are. But Unity believes that we have some tools. And if you've never taken Anna's 5 Principles class, I had the privilege to be in it again last week. She reminded me of what I'd forgotten, that when Charles and Myrtle Fillmore started the denomination, their intent was to use these tools to raise the consciousness of the human race, right? To evolve us to the best we can be, to this realization. I mean, what did it feel like sitting in I am the love of God when we were all meditating? To move us closer to that. So, Unity has tools for that, and that's what I want to talk about today. Some of those tools. What I'm really discussing is habits, okay? The old phrase is, we build our habits and then our habits make us, right? We make our habits and our habits make us. 90% of what you do during the day is habit. You may not think that, but how many times do you go to your car, you unlock the door, you open it, you sit down, you put on your seatbelt, holding a cup of coffee and a cell phone in your hand, right? Keeping the same conversation, you put your foot on the brake, you reach over and press the ignition and drive away and don't think anything about it. How do you do that? How do you do that unless you know how to do all that habitually? I ask you a question. How many times a day do you brush your teeth? What? Excuse me? Yeah, I did. I asked that question. How many times a day do you brush your teeth? Or actually even better, do you brush your teeth? Well, the odds are most of you do. The American Dental Association says about 75% of the people brush their teeth every day. Some people more than once, several times a day. How many of you floss? Ooh, meddling again, right? Would you believe, again, the American Dental Association says only 30% of people floss every day? 37% say, well, when I remember it, every once in a while. And 32% admit they never floss, ever. Now, does that make them terrible people because they don't floss? No. What am I saying? I'm saying they don't floss, or if you don't floss, because it was never made a habit in your life. Whereas brushing your teeth usually is. So what is this about in terms of habits? I started studying habits 2 years ago when I had a heart attack, and I'm very thankful to be here today, very lucky to be here according to my cardiologist. After the procedure and all the modern medical miracles, he said, we have to get you in cardiac rehab. I went, what is cardiac rehab? I'd heard of rehab and I didn't know if I wanted to go there, but cardiac rehab. He said, it's intensive exercise. For 12 weeks, 3 times a week, go to the gym, and we try to kill you. No, we don't try to kill you. But they put monitors on you to make sure the first week you don't die because you feel like you're going to. But then he said something very interesting. He said, the purpose of cardiac rehab really isn't the exercise. It's to get the habit of regular exercise installed in you. That's the purpose of cardiac rehab. And I thought, habit of regular exercise. Now, I don't know about you, I'm not in the habit of regular exercise. It just doesn't, even though I've got 3 machines at home. I got a treadmill, a rowing machine, and a stationary bicycle, right? And they make great coat hangers. They do. Put their laundry right on top of them. So I started studying habits, and there is, in Stanford University, there is a Dr. B.J. Fogg, who is a psychologist who has worked on human habits. And he's come up with an ingenious idea. 3 steps. 3 steps to install any habit in your life. And I'm going to adapt this to install prayer in ours. Okay? These 3 steps, with them, you can add more prayer to your life, be closer to God, and be happier in your life. Would you like to hear about those? Yeah. If you would, give me a big thumbs up. Yay. Thumbs up. Yay. Thank you, Anna. She's heard this before, so she knows what's coming. Have you ever considered the thumb? And you go, where is he going with this? Have you ever considered the thumb? How powerful, how wonderful the thumb is. Opposable thumbs set us apart from most other mammals, right? But think about it. A thumb can stop traffic. If you're thumbing, right? You stop in a car, right? You can do Netflix, right? Yay or nay on your cue. If you're a Roman emperor, life or death, and it's a perfect pacifier for a child. Or if you get nervous during this message, you can use it too. Most people have one or two. But whatever else we say about the thumb is short. Okay? That's what I remember. The thumb is one of the shortest fingers on your hand. And you go, no, my little finger's short. Well, why don't you hold it up knuckle to knuckle and see which is actually longer? For most people, the thumb is as short or shorter than your little finger. So let's say the thumb is short. Why do I care? Why do you care, actually? You care because that is the first point. That is the first ingredient in installing a habit, is keep it short. The action that you're trying to do, the habit, has to be 30 seconds or less. You have to complete it in 30 seconds or less. What are you saying? You're not trying to build this enormous pile of actions in your life. We all know what would happen with that. It happens every January 1st. What it does, doesn't it? Oh, I'm going to eat well, I'm going to the gym, and I'm going to meditate and exercise every day. And that lasts till about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on January 1st. No, but seriously, tiny habits is what he calls it, Dr. Fogg, and you can see his TED Talk if you want, but I'm adapting that. I'm calling this moments of mindful prayer. Moments of mindful prayer. You got to keep it short. What do I mean by that? Well, let's go back to the health example. Those of you who brush your teeth every day, don't floss, tonight, I dare you to do something. I dare you to pull out a piece of floss and floss one tooth. No, I'm serious. One tooth. And only one. You cannot floss more than one tooth for a week. No, I'm serious. Now, what would happen if you pull out that floss and you do, I'm done. Okay. What's your brain going to do about day 3? It's going to start saying, hey, excuse me, hello, you got it out. Why don't you do a couple more? No, Mr. Settle said only one tooth, right? About day 4, it's going to start screaming at you, floss your teeth. Do more than one. What you're doing is you're setting up a pattern so that by about day 6 or 7, if you hold off, I guarantee you will floss at least several teeth, maybe most of them. And you look at it and go, wow, that's amazing. How do I change this and move it to spiritual habits, spiritual labor? I've got a grandfather clock in the corner of my dining room, beautiful grandfather clock. It was my uncle's, my favorite Uncle Hugh. And after he died, his widow, my Aunt Helen, moved that clock with her to Michigan. Didn't know what was going to happen to it. A couple of years later, she calls me and she says, I'm sending you the clock. He always wanted you to have it. And I love that clock. I do. And for the first few months, I actually put a note on the calendar every week when I needed to wind it, because again, it is an old-fashioned grandfather clock. It's an 8-day mechanism, so you have to wind it every 7 days, right? There's a weight in the center that goes down that you put a crank in and wind it up. And then I started doing something different. Whenever I would walk to the kitchen and look and see that pendulum, the weight about halfway down, I'd go, I need to wind this clock. So I'd open the door, pull the crank out of the top, put it in, and start winding the clock. Guess what? It took less than 30 seconds. So while I was winding the clock, I said a prayer of gratitude for Uncle Hugh. And I would say a prayer for my Aunt Helen. who is still living in Michigan. She's an amazing woman, 94 years old. She's got 2 boyfriends. No, she does. She drives, and she says they take me out to dinner, one on different days, during the week. She actually had to let one of them go a few years back and get another one because the first one got Alzheimer's and couldn't remember who she was. So you want to be Aunt Helen when you age, let me tell you. She's phenomenal. But you know what? I then put the crank back up, lock the door. Invariably, a couple of times a month, I'll get a phone call from Aunt Helen and say, I was thinking about you the other day. I just, out of the blue, was thinking about you. I don't ask her when, but I know there's a connection between that and Aunt Helen. Every night when I go to bed, I sit on the side of the bed, take my bedroom slippers off and put them right there, okay? And then I pick up this pictorial directory that we just did last year. I open to a new page and put my finger down and I pray for you for 30 seconds. And you go, what can you do for me in 30 seconds? I can do 4 ho'oponoponos if you want to do that, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I can do that 4 times. Or I can, if I know you, pray for what I know about you. Or I just sit there and I'm thankful for you for 30 seconds. Now, do I only pray for 30 seconds? Usually not. Usually I'll look down and see somebody else in the, I need to pray for them. And I know them, or I saw them Sunday, or where were they? I didn't see them last Sunday. So usually it's more than that, but it's at least 30 seconds. All it takes is 30 seconds, right? You've got to keep it short. That is the first ingredient. Now, what's the second? What do we call this finger, usually? Index finger, right? What else do we use it for? Trigger. Ever since the ancient Chinese developed the crossbow, right? That's been a trigger finger right there. For whatever you want to shoot, that's what you do. Now, in the old days, you used to have this quaint idea of tying a string around that finger, right? As an illustration to remember something. I never could remember what it was at the time, but I want you to imagine that you tie a string around that finger right now, or if you want, I want to take your other hand, everybody, take your other hand and wrap around it as if you're tying that hand on. Because here's what you're trying to remember. The second step, first step is short. The second step is you tie the trigger for your habit to something you already do. This is the genius of this plan. You tie the trigger for your habit to something you already do. What happens with most of us in habits? We try to start a new habit. It's a totally new thing. It's totally out of place in our schedule, right? We try to make it too long, and we try to remember or set a clock, a watch or a cell phone to go off to remind us of it. No, you tie the trigger to something you already do. I already wind the clock twice a week. I already take my bedroom slippers off and put them beside the bed, beside the pictorial directory. It's standing right there, next to the nightstand, every week. And underneath the clock on that same nightstand is the Daily Word, which Darla wanted me to point out comes in both regular size and large print, and we have the new ones, September ones. It's the advertisement. Every time I set my clock, I open it to the next page and take 30 seconds to read the devotion. How hard is this? It's not. It's not, because it's really not adding any new things for you to remember during your day. Now, what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to help us install habits in these large parts of our days that have become lost. Our habitual parts of days, our mundane task. Moments of mindful prayer. Let's do something together. Close your eyes. Just for 2 minutes, close your eyes. Don't worry, you'll thank me later. All right, I want you to imagine you get up in the morning and go into your bathroom, and you reach over and turn on the light switch. As you touch that light switch, a shock of electricity goes through your hand. It's okay, you're safe, right? Now imagine you do it again. You reach over and touch the light switch, and a shock goes through your hand. And as it goes through your hand, your mind says, the power of God flows through me. Say it. The power of God flows through me. Now imagine it again. One more time. Reach over, touch the light switch. You feel the power running through your hand. Say, the power of God flows through me. Again, the power of God flows through me. Open your eyes. What have we just done? We've installed a habit of an affirmation, so that every time you touch a light switch, how many times do you touch a light switch a day? Right? In the bathroom, you go into the kitchen, you turn the dining room light on, right? What if you installed every single time you touch the light switch, you heard the power of God flows through me? How would that change your day? How would that change your life? What are other affirmations? Anna gave me a good one at the 5 Principles class. I am loved, all is well. What if every time you turned the water on, the faucet, got something out of a drinking fountain? I am loved, all is well. How would that change your day? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you to not meditate. In fact, let me give you an example. A teacher comes into a classroom and she puts this giant fish bowl, right? Big glass fish bowl here in front of the class. And then she lifts a box of rocks, big rocks about the size of your fist. And she starts putting the rocks into the glass fish bowl. Right? And she gets the rocks all the way to the top, and she asks the class, is the bowl full? And they all go, well, yeah, you can't put any more rocks in it, right? Of course the bowl's full. Really? She lifts up a box of gravel and starts pouring the gravel into the box, which fills down around all the spaces in the big rocks. And then she says, is the bowl full? And they're beginning to get the idea. They said, we think it is. Really? So she lifts a box of sand and pours it into the glass bowl. And the sand fills up all the spaces. Is the bowl full now? And they go, probably not. So she grabs a pitcher of water and pours it in all the way to the top. Now, what's this illustration usually used for is time management. Stephen Covey uses it a lot in terms of if you don't put the big rocks into your day at the beginning, you'll never get them in because other people are going to fill your day up with gravel and sand, right? And they do. That's their job, they think, right? And that's a good illustration. That's where you put meditation, right? It's one of those big rocks. I'm trying to say that what you need to remember is even if your day gets filled with gravel and rocks, you still have the opportunity to pour this water of mindfulness into any space in there. It takes up all these extra spaces. During your day, you still have that opportunity. Oh, wait a minute. I only did 2, didn't I? I said there was 3. What was the first one? Short. Thank you very much. The second one? Tie the trigger, right? Okay. The third one is give yourself a reward when you do the short action. You know, a reward. Now, I have to be honest with you. The first time I heard this and applied it to the spiritual life, I thought to myself, wait a minute. Does this mean every time I do an affirmation, I can have a donut? Yes! And the answer is yes, if you want a donut. Or you can do the yes, a hand motion, or a prayer motion, or a smile. What do you do when you celebrate? Kids are really good at this. You know, we've forgotten as adults how to celebrate our accomplishments, really. I remember as an associate minister in New Bern, North Carolina, there was a preschool in the church. And I actually went and sat and observed the preschoolers one day. And I'm sitting there, and this beautiful little girl comes running up to me, and she stands right in front of me, literally right in front of me. And they'd been doing finger painting, I think it was. And I was afraid she was going to get finger paints all over me, but whatever. She stands there in front of me, and I said, yes, can I help you? She says, no, I just wanted to tell you how smart I am. How smart I am. Finger painting. I'm so smart. You know, wow, look at me. Look at what I did. You know, wow, I amaze even myself. I have a sticker on the side of my office filing cabinet that says that. I amaze even myself. What if you heard that every time you got in your car? What if you heard, the Lord guides me in my every step, every time you picked up your cell phone, right? What if this little voice in the back of your head would remind you of all these things that make you realize your better self throughout all these mundane times of the day, right? That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about installing moments of mindful prayer during the day. Now, you can use this same 3-step technique to lose weight, to get more money in your life, to improve your relationships, right? You're welcome. No extra charge for that, right? But I'm encouraging you to use this technique to build something higher in your life, for something deeper. The others are important, but build it for something that will change large sections of your life. One of my favorite writers and thinkers of the 20th century was a guy named Buckminster Fuller. You may know him, the inventor of the geodesic dome. Most people know him for, but he was an amazing thinker, very original thinker. Bucky was concerned with design. That's what he wanted design to work for rich and poor, young and old. And one day I saw a lecture. He died in '83, so I never saw him personally, but I saw a lecture from him on naval design of big ships. Now, most of us know what a rudder is, right? The rudder is that piece of wood you put behind the boat in the stern that you turn it and the boat goes this way, you turn it and the boat goes this way. I'm talking about giant ships. An aircraft carrier, Nimitz class, has 2 rudders. Each of them are 29 feet long and 23 feet tall, and they weigh 50 tons. Okay? Now, it takes an enormous amount of energy to move that rudder back and forth and to move the ship. But what ship designers have discovered, and what Buckminster Fuller was talking about, was a little piece of metal on the back of that rudder, probably not 4 or 5 feet. It's called a trim tab. No one's ever heard of it probably in here, a trim tab. This little piece of metal really is like an extra rudder. It's like a mini rudder, okay? It doesn't take much energy to move it. But when you move that trim tab, it creates a negative energy on this side, a negative pressure, and the entire rudder starts to move. That's what I'm telling you to do today. These tiny habits, these moments of mindful prayer are like the trim tab on those enormous rudders of your life. You want to change your life? Start with these tiny habits, and they will begin the rudder changing, which will change the direction and your trajectory for everything you do. So that maybe you will believe, I am the love of God. I am the power of God. I am the presence of God, because that's where your life goes. And that's what you hear in your head every day. Pray with me. God is my help in every need. God does my every hunger feed. God walks beside me, guides my way through every moment of the day. I now am wise. I now am true, patient, kind, and loving too. All things I am, can do, and be through Christ, the truth that is in me. God is my health. I can't be sick. God is my strength, unfailing quick. God is my all. I know no fear, since God and love and truth are here. And so it is. Amen.